Title: What the Paleo Diet Gets Completely Wrong About Human Evolution. Human evolution did not stop 10,000 years ago, and that single fact is what the Paleo Diet movement gets fundamentally wrong. Evolutionary biologists like Daniel Lieberman, the Harvard paleoanthropologist who helped popularize the mismatch hypothesis, and Herman Pontzer, who studies the metabolism of contemporary hunter-gatherers, have spent decades investigating what Homo sapiens and earlier hominins actually ate across the Paleolithic era. And the answer looks nothing like the paleo aisle at Whole Foods. The paleo diet industry is built on a single premise. Your body evolved for a specific ancestral diet. Modern food breaks it, and returning to what your Paleolithic ancestors ate will solve your health problems. It is a compelling premise. It has sold millions of books, spawned thousands of restaurants, and generated billions of dollars in food sales. It also rests on a version of human evolutionary history that is almost entirely wrong. When Loren Cordain popularized the paleo diet in the early 2000s, he built it on a specific claim about human evolution: that modern humans are genetically adapted to the diet of Paleolithic hunter-gatherers, roughly meat, fish, vegetables, fruit, nuts, and seeds, and that the introduction of grains, legumes, and dairy through the agricultural revolution represents an evolutionary mismatch. Your body, the argument goes, has not had enough time to adapt to these foods, which is why they cause inflammation, digestive problems, and chronic disease. There are legitimate elements of this argument. The modern industrialized diet, heavy in processed carbohydrates, refined sugars, seed oils, and ultra-processed foods, does appear to be associated with a range of metabolic conditions. The observation that hunter-gatherer populations eating traditional diets tend to have lower rates of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and some cancers is well documented. But the specific mechanism the paleo movement proposes, that pre-agricultural foods are uniquely compatible with human physiology, fails. At almost every point it can be tested. Start with what Paleolithic humans actually ate. The movement's implicit model is a diet dominated by large game, steaks and chops and ribs, lean wild meat with none of the fat of domesticated animals. This image owes more to mid-century steak culture than to the archaeological record. Analysis of fossilized dental plaque calculus from hominin teeth across multiple populations and time periods consistently shows high proportions of plant material. Starch granules, plant phytoliths, and residues from tubers, seeds, and fruits are among the most common findings. A 2021 study showed that humans were cooking and consuming starchy plant foods at least 170,000 years ago. This fits Richard Wrangham's cooking hypothesis, the argument that controlled use of fire and cooked food shaped human evolution itself, going back well into the time of Homo erectus. Pontzer, who has spent years studying the metabolic biology of contemporary hunter-gatherer groups including the Hadza of Tanzania, has noted that the idea of a low-carbohydrate ancestral diet simply does not fit the available evidence from paleoanthropology. Hunter-gatherer diets were enormously variable, shaped by geography, season, latitude, and what was locally available. Neanderthals in Ice Age Europe ate differently from Homo erectus in East Africa, who ate differently from Homo sapiens on the Mediterranean coast. Arctic populations like the Inuit ate diets genuinely dominated by animal fat and protein because plant foods were not available year-round in sufficient quantity. Tropical populations ate primarily plant foods, with meat as a supplement. Coastal populations ate fish and shellfish as dietary staples. There was no single Paleolithic diet. The human digestive system evolved to handle remarkable dietary flexibility, which is one reason Homo sapiens, starting from the African savanna, where our species first evolved, colonized every inhabited continent. from tropical rainforests to Arctic tundra. The specific foods the paleo movement prohibits, particularly grains and legumes, have a longer relationship with human ancestors than the movement acknowledges. Evidence of grain consumption predates agriculture by tens of thousands of years. Plant-based starchy foods appear in the archaeological record, going back well over 100,000 years. The salivary amylase gene, AMY1, which produces the enzyme that begins digesting starch in the mouth, exists in multiple copies in most modern humans, and the number of copies varies across populations in ways that correlate with the carbohydrate content of ancestral diets. This was first mapped in detail in the mid-2000s. Populations with long histories of starchy diets tend to carry more copies. This is genetic adaptation to starchy food in action, evolution that happened before agriculture and continued after it. The claim that the 10,000 years since agriculture began is too short for meaningful genetic adaptation is also not accurate. Lactase persistence, the ability of adults to digest lactose in milk, is a genetic adaptation that arose independently in multiple pastoral populations within the last 10,000 years and is now present at high frequency in populations with long histories of dairying. It is one of the clearest and fastest examples of recent human evolution documented in the human genome. Human evolution did not stop at the Paleolithic. It continued through the Neolithic, through early historical periods, and it is ongoing. The broader evolutionary framework the paleo movement uses is also flawed in a more fundamental way. Natural selection does not optimize for health, longevity, or well-being in the modern sense. It optimizes for reproductive success in a specific environment. Many traits that were adaptive in ancestral environments are actively harmful in modern ones. The propensity to prefer calorie-dense foods when available, to store fat efficiently, to respond to intermittent food scarcity with metabolic adjustments that cause problems under conditions of continuous abundance. These are evolutionary adaptations running in an environment they were not shaped for. Eating ancestrally does not reverse this mismatch, because the entire modern environment, not just food, differs from the ancestral one. None of this means the paleo movement contains no useful dietary insights. The emphasis on whole foods over ultra-processed ones, on vegetables and lean protein, on reducing added sugar, these are consistent with mainstream nutritional science. The dietary changes matter for health. The evolutionary story attached to them does not hold up under scrutiny, but the practical dietary advice has merit independent of the evolutionary narrative. What the paleo movement gets wrong is the history it builds its authority on. It presents a simplified, selective, and in many respects invented version of ancestral human diets and uses that version to justify specific modern food choices. The actual Paleolithic diet was not a single thing. It was not low carbohydrate. It was not grain-free. It included starchy plants, seasonal variety, and whatever the local environment provided. Our ancestors were generalists, not specialists. That generalism, the ability to thrive on almost any combination of available macronutrients, is one of the defining characteristics of the human lineage. The paleo diet, ironically, tries to constrain a generalist species to a single dietary template, and then claims evolutionary authority for doing so. The evolutionary record does not support a specific ancestral diet. It supports flexibility, variety, and adaptation. That story is less marketable, but it is the one the bones and teeth and ancient DNA actually tell.